Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss how EAN rule, that is effective atomic number rule, it can be applied to metal carbonyls. So this lecture is also a part of the series of lectures that we are seeing, and we have discussed so many metal carbonyls in the previous lectures. So let us see what is effective atomic number rule. So effective atomic number, what is it? It is the total number of electrons surrounding the nucleus of a metal in a complex. So the important thing is we are counting the number of electron in the metal which has already formed the complex. We are not counting number of valence electron in the metals. So when we have a complex, when a metal has formed a complex, it has actually accepted electron pairs from the ligands. That is what the complex is, right? We have a metal atom which is accepting electron pairs from the surrounding ligands, and then we count all the electronic contributions both from the metal that is in the complex, metal atom, and also the ligands, number of ligands which have donated a certain number of electron pairs. So after counting all the electrons, we have to compare the number of the electrons, total number of electrons to the inert gas rule. So, what is it? Let us see. Sedgwick's EAN rule, or it is also known as inert gas rule. So, effective atomic number of the metal atom in a stable complex is equal to the atomic number of a noble gas found in the same period of the periodic table. So, after calculating the total number of electrons present in the complex, you have to compare the number of these electrons to the atomic number of a noble gas. And also, which noble gas? Which is present in the same period of the periodic table. So, in which period? The period in which your metal atom is present. So, you have to look at the rightmost corner of the periodic table, and you have to find out what is the atomic number of that noble gas. So, you will compare the total number of electrons present in the metal complex to the atomic number of the noble gas, and if they both are equal, then you can say that the complex is really a stable one because now it has achieved the noble electronic configuration. So, in this rule, what happens? Most of the organometallic compounds, which are like carbonyls, nitroses, they all obey the EAN rule. Many of the organometallic compounds they obey the effective atomic number rule, and it is mainly useful in predicting the number of ligand attached to the metal in such compound. So, what is the application of EAN rule when you are calculating the effective atomic number? Basically, you take into account the electronic contributions from the individual ligand, right? And in that manner, you can find out that which ligand is combined to the metal atom in which manner, whether it is a bridging ligand or it is a terminal ligand, whether it is a trihepto, tetrahepto, pentahepto type of ligand. So you can also calculate the hepaticity of the ligand in the metal complex. So it can have multiple applications. And in the today's lecture, we will focus on the application of the effective atomic number rule on the metal carbonyl. So our special consideration will be the metal carbonyl complexes. So let us see the effective atomic number calculation. How do we calculate it? So we have this equation here. EAN is equal to Z plus A plus B plus C, where these symbols have their meaning. So what is Z? Z is the atomic number of metal atom. So you have to take the atomic number of the metal atom. Then A is what? Number of electrons donated by terminal carbonyl groups. So you are counting the number of electrons, right? And not the number of electron pairs. So you should not count the number of pairs, right? You have to count the actual number of electrons. And A is the number of electrons donated by terminal carbonyl ligand, carbonyl groups. Then B is the number of electrons donated by bridging carbonyl groups. So you know that when we have a bridging carbonyl, it donates actually one electron to each of the metal. Between the two metal atoms, if it is forming a bridge, then the electron pair on the carbon HOMO, one electron goes to each of the metal atoms. So this is the way. And C is the number of electron donated by other metal for the formation of metal-metal bond. So, in some previous lectures, we have seen that a number of polynuclear metal carbonyls, they also contain the metal-metal bond, and in this manner, a pairing of the electron takes place. So, the C is what when the metal-metal bond is present in the polynuclear carbonyl. So, you have to count on the number of electrons donated by the other metal atom. So, this is the equation that we use for the calculation of effective atomic number. Now, let us see some examples for this. So, let us calculate the EAN for nickel atom in the nickel tetracarbonyl. So, what will be the procedure? So, first of all, you have to find out the values of Z, A, B, C, and then we will add them together to get the effective atomic number. So, first of all, in the nickel tetracarbonyl, Z is atomic number of the metal atom. So you have the atomic number of metal atom. So what is the atomic number of nickel? It is 28. After that, A is what? A is the number of electrons donated by terminal carbonyl groups. So how many carbonyl groups we have in the nickel tetracarbonyl? So we have 4 terminal carbonyl groups here, and each of them is donating one electron pair, right? So one electron pair is 2 electrons. So each of the carbonyl is donating 2 electrons, and a total of 4 carbonyls are present. So what will be their total electronic contribution? In a total, they will donate 8 electrons to the metal atom. Then B is number of electrons donated by bridging carbonyl group. So it is 0 because we do not have any bridging bonds in the nickel tetracarbonyl. And the C is number of electrons donated by other metal atom for the formation of metal-metal bond. So we have a 0 metal-metal bond in the nickel tetracarbonyl. So the total contribution by this MM bond, it will be 0, right? So now let us apply the equation. So what is effective atomic number of nickel tetracarbonyl? So it will be Z plus A plus B plus C. So a total of 28 plus 8 plus 0 plus 0. So you have a sum of 36. Now, if you see this effective atomic number 36, it is equal to the atomic number of krypton. Krypton is the noble gas, and it is lying in the same period of the periodic table as the nickel. So, in the same period, it is present, krypton. So you can see that in the nickel tetracarbonyl, the effective atomic number of nickel has reached to 36. So you can say that EAN rule, it is obeyed in the nickel tetracarbonyl. So this is the simplest example that we can see. Now, if you want to check the validity of 18 electron rule, we also have 18 electron rule for metal complexes. So if you want to check what is the validity of 18 electron rule, then you have to put the number of valence electron of the metal atom in place of atomic number. So in the 18 electron rule, we are only counting the valence electron, right? And that valency should reach to 18. That is the rule. So in place of the atomic number Z, now we are using the same EAN equation, but we are not using the atomic number. Rather, we put the number of valence electron. So let us see with the same example, that is the nickel tetracarbonyl. So the valence shell configuration of nickel is 3D8 4s2. So we know that in the carbonyl compounds, the metal is in the zero oxidation state. So we have to consider the zero oxidation state of the nickel. So the nickel atom will have 10 valence electron in its zero oxidation state. So now let us calculate the number of electrons, total number of valence electrons surrounding the nucleus of metal atom. So here in the place of Z, we have number of valence electron of metal atom. So we have counted them as 10. plus A plus B plus C. So we will have a 10 plus 8 plus 0 plus 0. So a total of 18 we are getting here. So in this manner, you can say that nickel tetracarbonyl is also obeying the 18 electron rule. So the EAN rule and the 18 electron rule, they both are similar in a certain sense that they are actually calculating the number of electrons required to achieve the stability. But in the EAN equation, we are considering the atomic number and we are comparing that atomic number to the atomic number of the nearby noble gas. But in the case of 18 electron rule, we are taking a general perception that in order to achieve the stability, one metal atom has to complete its valence shell with 18 electrons. So this is the thing. Now we can also apply the similar EAN rule for other type of metal carbonyls. So let us see the EAN for iron atoms, right? In the tri-iron dodecarbonyl. So what is tri-iron dodecarbonyl? It is Fe3CO12. This is a tri-iron dodecarbonyl. So in the tri-iron dodecarbonyl, we have two iron atoms. They are bridged and have the same environment. We have already seen this example. If you remember in the previous lecture, we have seen the structure of this compound. So the two iron atoms, they are bridged and they have the same environment, while the third iron atom has a different bonding environment. So we have seen the structure, the very special type of polynuclear metal carbonyl this is. So we need to calculate the effective atomic number for both the type of iron atoms separately. We have, you can divide the three iron atom into two categories. The two iron atoms, they are having the similar environment and one is having a different environment. So let us see for the bridged iron atoms. When the two iron atoms, they have a carbonyl bridge between them. So now we will apply the EAN equation, right? So let us see what is Z here. Z is the atomic number of metal atom. So what is the atomic number of iron? It is 26. Then A is number of electron donated by terminal carbonyl groups. So a total of 3 terminal carbonyls, they are present on each of the iron. In the dodecarbonyl, you have 12 carbonyl ligands, right? 12 CO are there in the dodecarbonyl. So among these 12, 3 are present, 3 carbonyls are present on each of the iron. So it will be 12, right? Sorry, it will be 9, and the 3, they are in the bridging mode. So you can see that the number of electron donated by terminal carbonyl will be 3 terminal, and they are on the both iron, right? So into 2 electrons donated by each group. So a total of 6 electrons we are getting from the 3 terminal carbonyls. Then the B is number of electrons donated by bridging carbonyl group. So we have a 2 bridging carbonyl group between the 2 iron atoms into 1 electron donated by each group. That we have seen when the carbonyl is forming a bridge between 2 metal atoms, because it has only 1 pair of electron to donate. So how it will donate the same electron pair to 2 metal atoms? 1 electron will go to each of the metal atoms. So when you are considering the carbonyl ligand in the bridging mode, the electronic contribution will be 1 electron each group. So when you have 2 bridging carbonyl groups, the electronic contribution to the single metal atom, it will be 2. Then what is C? C is the number of electron donated by other metal atom. That is for the formation of a metal-metal bond. So for the formation of 2 Fe-Fe bond, 1 electron each donated by each iron atom. So as a result, because you have 2 metal-metal bond, 1 iron is making bond with each of the other iron, right? We have 3 irons. So 1 iron atom is forming metal-metal bond with each of the 2 other irons. So 1 electron it is getting from each of the iron. So a total of 2 electrons are coming from the formation of metal-metal bond. So now let us apply the equation. So we have EAN is equal to Z plus A plus B plus C. Let us put all the values here. So we have 26, that is the atomic number of iron. 6 electrons are coming from the terminal carbonyl. 2 electrons are coming from the terminal carbonyls. And also we have C, that is the 2 electrons are coming from the metal-metal bond. So as a result, a total of 36 we are getting. And this is for the bridging iron atom, right? The iron atom which is having a bridge. So the effective atomic number is found to be 36, which is the atomic number of krypton. Now krypton is again present in the same period as the iron. So krypton is what? It is a noble gas, and this is lying in the same period of the periodic table, similar to the iron. So now we can say that this complex, this carbonyl, is obeying the EAN rule. So this we have calculated for the bridging iron atom, right? The iron atom which are having bridges. Now let us see if we can apply the 18 electron rule here. So we have to put the number of valence electrons in place of the atomic number. So how many valence electrons are there in the iron? In the ground state and in the zero oxidation state, iron is having the electronic configuration that is the 3d6 4s2. So it has a total of 8 valence electrons, right? And now let us apply the 18 electron rule here. So in place of Z, we have put the number of valence electrons here. So total number of valence electrons plus A plus B plus C. So 8 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2. So we have a total of 18 here. So therefore, you can say the bridging iron atom in the tri-iron dodecarbonyl, it also obeys the 18 electron rule. So we have seen that the bridging irons present in this type of carbonyl, in this type of polynuclear carbonyl, they both are obeying the 18 electron rule as well as the EAN rule. Now we also have another iron in the same complex, but this iron is unbridged. It is not having bridge, but yes, it has metal-metal bond. So let us apply the similar rules for this this iron atom also. So let us see for unbridged iron atom. What is the atomic number? It will be 26. Then A is the electronic contribution from terminal carbonyls. So 4 terminal carbonyls are there and it does not have any bridge. And 2 electrons are coming from each of the carbonyl. So a total of 8 electrons are coming from the terminal carbonyl group. Then B will be 0. Why? Because there are no bridges. No bridging carbonyls are present here. And lastly, the number of electrons coming from the metal-metal bond. So we know that each iron atom is forming 2 bonds with other 2 iron atoms. We have 3 irons total, and each of the iron is forming a metal-metal bond with the other 2 iron atoms. So again, a 2 electrons, they are coming from the metal-metal bond. So the value of C would be here 2. And now let us put all these value in our equation. So this is EAN is equal to Z plus A plus B plus C. And Z is the atomic number 26 plus 8 plus 0 plus 2. So again, a total of 36 is coming. And it is what? It is the atomic number of krypton. Krypton is the noble gas lying in the same period of the periodic table as the iron. So again, you can say that EAN rule is obeyed by the non-bridging iron atom as well in the tri-iron dodecarbonyl. So in order to check the validity of the 18 electron rule, again now we will do what? In the place of atomic number, we will put the number of valence electron in the metal atom. So the valence shell of iron is, this is iron. Iron in the valence shell of iron, we have a total of 8 valence electron. And now just replace the number of valence electron in place of the atomic number. So 8 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2. So we have a total of 18 electron. So you can say that the non-bridging iron atom in the tri-iron dodecarbonyl obeys the 18 electron rule also. So in this particular type of polynuclear metal carbonyl, we have seen that both the type of metal atoms, whether they are in the bridging mode or not, they both are obeying the 30 effective atomic number rule and the 18 electron rule. So these calculations can be done for a different type of carbonyls. So some examples are given here. Like you can see for the tetracarbonyl nickel, we have already performed the calculation and it comes about 36 near to krypton. Then pentacarbonyl iron. So we have Z26A. We have 5 terminal carbonyls in the FeCO5, right? So each of them is giving 2 electron. A total of 10 electrons are coming. We do not have any bridging carbonyl in this compound. And C, that is the metal-metal bond, is also 0. So 26 plus 10 will be equal to 36. So it is obeying the EAN rule. Then the ruthenium CO5. So in the ruthenium CO5, Z is 44, that is atomic number of ruthenium. 5 carbonyls in the terminal mode, giving 10 electrons each, and don't have any bridging or a metal-metal bond. So a total of 54 is coming, and it is equal to the xenon. Xenon is the noble gas which is present in the same period in which your ruthenium is present. Then OSCO5, so we have 76, that is the atomic number of osmium. 5 terminal carbonyls are present, donating 10 electrons. A total of 86 is coming, and this 86 is equal to radon, atomic number of radon. Radon is again what? It is a noble gas present in the same period in which osmium is present. So again you can say that this metal carbonyl is following the effective atomic number rule. Then we have this chromium CO6, and the atomic number is 24. The 6 carbonyl, they all are in the terminal mode, so they are donating a total of 12 electron. When you add them, 24, 12, rest is 0. So you get a 36, a total of 36 equal to the atomic number of krypton. Some other examples are also given here. So MoCO6, and here one important thing, if you can notice, right? If I consider the bridging mode of the carbonyl, then this rule will not be followed, right? If I consider that among the two carbonyls, here in Fe2CO9, if I take a wrong consideration about the presence of terminal or bridging ligand, then this calculation will be wrong, and the effective atomic number will not be equal to the atomic number of noble gas. So this rule also help us in deciding that how many ligands are present in which type of mode and how many metal-metal bonds are present. So when you are applying the effective atomic number rule, you can actually count on how many metal-metal bonds are there. So you take this value, this is C value, right? C. So you take the C value as X, then you know the atomic number, you know the total electronic contribution by the carbonyls, and you know that it should come equal to 36 because this is the noble gas in the same period. So the total should come out 36. So when you develop an equation like this, and you count on the value of X that you have taken for the place of C. So what you will get here, let us see, if we calculate it like this, 26 plus 6, 26 plus 6 will be 32, and 32 plus 3, it will be 35, and it is one number less than the 36, right? We are getting a total of 35, and here we have 36, so it means that value of C should be 1. So it says that we have only one metal-metal bond in this type of compound, monocarbonyl diiron. Only one metal-metal bond is present. So this is the way we can count on the number of metal-metal bond. Similarly, we can count how many terminal and how many bridging ligands are there. So again, this would be an application of the effective atomic number rule. Now, another important application is you can identify the two isomers. In the previous lecture, we have seen that octacarbonyl dicobalt. This carbonyl compound, it exists in the form of two isomers. In one isomer, which is in the crystalline form and at the low temperature, bridging structure is present. But at the high temperature, when it is converted into vapors, the structure does not contain any bridge. So these two isomers can be present in case of the octacarbonyl dicobalt. So for both of them, we can count the effective atomic number. So let us see in the bridged format, CO2, CO8, the atomic number of cobalt is 27. Then terminal carbon. So because we have a bridged structure here, so between the two cobalt, we have two bridges of two carbonyl and remaining 6. So remaining 6 carbonyl will be in the terminal mode. So each of the cobalt will have a 3 carbonyl. So each cobalt is having 3 carbonyl as the terminal ligand and 2 carbonyl as the bridging ligand. So you can see that the 3 carbonyls with a donation of 2 electron pair each, they will give a total of 6 electrons. Then the 2 carbonyl in the bridging mode, 1 electron each. So you get a total of 2 electron here. And the cobalt atom, they are also having a metal bond. So one electron we are getting from here. So as a result, in the bridged structure of this octa-carbonyl dicobalt compound, in the bridge structure we get a total of 36. So this is equal to krypton. So for this type of isomer, which is present at the low temperature in the crystalline form of this carbonyl compound, it obeys 36. It obeys the effective atomic number rule. Let us see the similar calculation for another isomer. So here we do not have a bridge structure, and the 8 carbonyls, they are all in the terminal mode. So each of the cobalt is having 4 terminal carbonyls and one metal bond. So here you can see 27 is the effective atomic number. Sorry, 27 is the atomic number of the cobalt, and 4 carbonyl in the terminal mode, giving 2 electrons each. So a total of 8 electrons are coming, and also we have one metal bond. So when you add all these values, it will equal to the 36. So this is the effective atomic number, equal to the atomic number of the nearby noble gas, that is krypton. Again, this calculation we have already performed in the Fe3CO12. We have performed the calculation for the unbridged iron atom and for the bridged iron atom. So in the tri-iron dodeca carbonyl, we have one unbridged iron and two bridged iron. So we have already seen this calculation in the previous slides. Similarly, we have this Mn2CO10 here. So the atomic number is 25 for each of the manganese, and it has one metal bond. Also, all the 5 carbonyls, they are in the terminal mode, so they are contributing 2 electrons per group. So a total of 10 electrons are coming from 5 terminal carbonyls, and when you add them up, it comes to 36. So in this manner, we have performed so many calculations, so many EAN calculations, and we have seen that uh, so many metal carbonyls, generally they are following the EAN rule. Now, while finding the EAN, if only valence electron of metal are considered, the resultant number for the stable complex come out to be 18. So now you can also say that EAN rule is the 18 electron rule. So it is also referred to as Langmuir's 18 electron rule. So what does this say? What is 18 electron rule? It says that why to count those electrons which are not taking part in the bond formation. So it makes it easy, and it says that 18 electron rule says that you should not take the atomic number of the metal atom into consideration. Just count the number of valence electrons. How many electrons are present in the valence shell? So when you calculate only the valence electron of the metal atom, then it should come equal to the 18. So in place of taking all the electrons into consideration, now the restriction will be on the valence electron only. So now the EAN rule becomes the 18 electron rule. Now the octahedral complexes, they obey the 18 electron rule, and they are called the 18 electron compounds. And spatial stability is seen for such type of complexes. Why? Because they have a completely filled valence electron shell. So when a particular metal atom has already completed its valence electron, completed its valence shell, then it will not react easily with any other reagent, because it does not need to take or release electrons now. It has achieved a complete stable structure. So just to understand this, now we just consider the nature of the carbonyl ligand. So, what is the nature of carbonyl ligand? The carbonyl is very strong field ligand. And why do we call it a strong field ligand? So, if you remember in the previous lectures, we have seen the hybridization in so many metal atoms when the metal carbonyl was getting formed. So, we saw that as soon as the carbonyl it reaches to the metal atom, all the electrons they get paired. If you remember, whether it was the formation of the nickel tetracarbonyl or iron pentacarbonyl or chromium hexacarbonyl, or about all the other polynuclear carbonyls that we discussed in the previous lectures, we saw that the carbonyl ligand, as soon as it reaches to the metal atom in its ground state, and even in its zero oxidation state, all the electrons they get paired. Like in case of the nickel tetracarbonyl, we saw that it has the configuration of 3d8 4s2, and when the carbonyl reaches to it, suddenly what happens? The s electron they come back to the d orbital, and they all the electron get paired. So the electronic configuration in the presence of carbonyl, when it reaches to the nickel, it becomes 3d10. So this is the special ability of a strong field ligand, that it causes the pairing of the electrons. And the carbon monoxide, it is actually a strong field ligand, because despite its poor ability to donate the sigma electrons, because the carbon is actually having the two electrons in its HOMO, so it shows a poor ability to donate these electrons. But its ability to accept the pi electrons, it is remarkable. So where it is accepting the pi electrons, it becomes a strong pi acceptor and accept the unused electron density on the metal atom into its empty LUMOs. So these empty LUMOs are having a very special symmetry, and so easily they can combine with the d orbitals. They can overlap with the d orbitals of the metal atom, which are already filled. So that effective overlap takes place so quickly and so easily due to the symmetry combinations. And now these LUMOs are accepting the electron from the metal atom and forming a pi bond. So this makes this type of behavior, it makes the carbonyl as a very strong field ligand. Now the symmetry adapted combinations of 6 sigma and 3 pi orbitals of the ligand, you can see them in the molecular orbital diagram, and we have already discussed this diagram, so we will not go into that much of the detail. And we know that T2G set of orbitals of the metal atom, they act as a bonding orbital, and they are attributed to the presence of pi interactions between the metal and the ligand orbitals. Now in the MO diagram, we have already seen this. There are 9 bonding molecular orbitals, and thus the compound containing all the bonding molecular orbitals are filled with the 18 electrons. Like we have seen that all the metal atoms in the metal carbons, they are containing 18 electrons in their valence shell. So if the 9 bonding orbitals we have, so all of them will have a pair of electrons. And as a result, in the carbonyl compound, all the electrons are paired. So that is why generally they are diamagnetic in nature. Now, if more than 18 electrons are to be accommodated, then where the coming electron will go? Suppose if you have 19 electrons, so the coming 19th electron will go in the anti-bonding molecular orbital. And what happens when the electron enters into the anti-bonding molecular orbital? Compound become unstable, because that electron will have very high energy, and it will soon perform some reaction. Soon it will be lost, because to stabilize the molecule you have to lower down the energy of the molecule. So the molecule wants to release that particular electron present in the anti-bonding molecular orbital. So whenever the electron number will be more than 18, the coming electron will be the ABMO, and therefore what happens? Such compound will readily lose that electron. So when we have such compound which is readily losing the electron, so it can behave like a reducing agent. It can provide the electron for the other compound to get reduced. What is reduction? When a particular molecule is accepting electron. So to accept the electron, it should have certain reagent in the nearby place which is relieving the electrons readily. So such carbonyls, they become effective reducing agent. And if the number of electron, if the electron count, it comes less than 18, then what will happen? Again, the stability will be low, and now the carbonyl, it will try to attain that 18 electronic configuration. So it will try to catch electron from the neighboring place. So it will try to capture that electron from any compound which comes in contact of it. So in that case, it becomes a strong oxidizing agent. So, like we have seen that 8 BMOs, they are present in the square planar complex. In the octahedral, we have 9, and in the square planar complex, we have 8 BMOs. And in the presence of strong field ligand, this happens. So, a total of 16 electron configuration is required for a stable square planar complex in presence of a strong field ligand. Because if you are providing one electron pair to each of the 8 BMO, a total of 16 electron count will come. And this is the case of the square planar complexes. Now, if you consider the donation of 2 electrons from each of the 4 ligands, what will be the total electronic contribution? It will be only 8, right? So, only 8 electrons are coming from the ligand side, especially in the case of square planar complex. So, now what happens? Due to this, the metal atom, it must provide additional 8 electrons. Where will it get the additional 8 electrons? Just to complete the count of 16. So, this is possible only with the metal ions of the group 9. In the group 9, we have cobalt, rhodium, and iridium. And group 10, we have nickel, palladium, and platinum. So only these the type of metals, they can form the square planar complexes, which are lying towards the right hand side of the D block. So in the group 9 and group 10, this is the possibility that they can form the square planar complex. Most of the organometallic compounds, including the carbonyls and nitroses, they obey the EAN rule, and it is mainly useful in predicting the number of ligands attached to the metal in such compounds. So not only about the nature of the ligand that you get it from the EAN rule, but also we can count on the number of metal-metal bond present in a particular polynuclear carbonyl. Now, electron counting methods. How do we count the electron? When you are counting the effective atomic number or 18 electron rule, how you are counting the electrons. So let us see what are the electron counting methods. So we have two electron counting methods here. First is the neutral ligand method, and this is also known as the covalent method. And second is the donor pair method, and it is also known as the ionic method. So we have two methods for the counting of electrons. Let us discuss them one by one. First of all, see the neutral ligand method. So in the neutral ligand method, all the ligands, they are treated as electrically neutral. Like in case of the carbonyl, the ligand is already neutral. So in the neutral ligand method, you treat the ligand that it does not contain any charge, and it takes into account the number of electron that it can donate in the neutral state only, right? So we know that the neutral ligand, they are capable of donating 2 electrons, and we call them as the L type of ligand. Whenever the ligand is contributing 2 electron, you consider it as the L type, and if the ligand is donating 1 electron, you consider it X type. So when you are talking about the ligand, we can have L type and X type of ligand. So like in case of the carbonyl, suppose if you take the example of carbonyl, it can donate 2 electrons. So it is L type of ligand. But if you see the chloride, it can donate only 1 electron in the neutral state. So you consider it as the X type of ligand. Similarly, if you consider the cyclopentadienyl, so it is donating how much electron? 5 electron. Each of the carbon atom, 5 carbon atoms, they are having one unpaired electron on it, and as a total of 5 electrons, they are donated by the cyclopentadienyl. So this will be the electronic contribution, and you provided a combined symbol, that is L2X, because L2X will be what? It will be a contribution of 5 electrons. 2L will give 4 electrons, and 1X will give 1 electron. So 4 plus 1 will be equal to 5. So when it comes to cyclopentadienyl, you designate it by L2X. So this method is easy to use when the ligands are properly designated. We are considering the ligand as a neutral species, and then we consider the electronic contribution. So the overemphasis on the degree of covalence along with the negligence of the charge over metal ion remains the shortcoming of this method, because you are providing too much emphasis on the degree of covalence, and also you are neglecting that there could be some charge present on the metal ion as well. So we are considering that the ligand is neutral, and we are performing all the calculation. So due to these shortcomings, you cannot assign the oxidation state to the metal ion, and then so many other informations you cannot get it from this method, because you are not considering any charge. So this is the shortcoming of this method. Now let us see one example how we perform the electronic calculation in the neutral ligand method. So the verification of 18 electron rule for a mixed ligand carbonyl complex. Let us see. We have taken this complex into consideration. So we have a iron atom here, which is combined with the two carbonyls, one chloride and one cyclopentadienide. So let us see whether the complex is following the 18 electron rule or not. So in this complex, first of all, what we will take? We will take the valence electron of the iron atom. So we know that it is having the configuration 3d6 4s2. So a total of 8 valence electrons are present and the iron atom is neutral, right? Now the ligand C5H5, that is cyclopentadienide. It is also a neutral ligand and contributing 5 electrons. Then carbonyl is a 2 electron donor. So 2 carbonyls are donating 4 electrons in total. And the chloride, you count it as a X type of ligand, right? So only 1 electron is coming from this ligand. So it is giving 1 electron in total. So this is the count: one iron atom with 8 electrons, one cyclopentadienyl 5 electrons. Then you have two carbonyl ligands 4 electron and one chlorine ligand donating 1 electron only. So when you add all these values, it comes around 18 electrons, right? So on this the basis of these designations, you can actually write down the formula. So an organometallic compound containing the ligands designated by L and X. You can show it like this: M, X, A, L, B, and the power C. So A is the number of monodentate ligand, B is the number of bidentate ligand, and C is the charge, right? A is the number of X type of ligand, B is the number of L type of ligand, and C is the charge over the complex. So this is the general formula that we can assign to these type of complexes. So now the electron count, how you get it? So N plus A plus 2B minus C. This is the formula. How you get it? N is the number of valence electron, right? Then plus A. A is the number of electron donated by the X type of ligand. So it will be 1. But when you consider the B, B is the number of L electrons. So 2 electrons are coming from each ligand. So you calculate it like 2B. Minus C, C is the charge on the complex ion. So you can represent this compound, this complex, as L2X M2LX. L2X is for the cyclopentadienide. Then iron is M, that is your metal atom. CO twice. CO twice is two L's are there and one Cl. It is X type of ligand, so you write it like X. And in this manner, uh, if you perform the addition of all these values, so it becomes M, X, 2x we have, and L4. So this is the common designation that can be given to such type of complex. So if you count on the electrons, it comes to 18. So this was the example for neutral method of electron counting. Now let us see the another method, that is the donor pair method. Now in this method, this is also called as ionic method. In this method, some ligands are treated as neutral, whereas others are treated as charged. And whenever you are considering the charge on the ligand, you have to consider charge on the metal atom also. So it is assumed that the ligands donate electrons only as pairs. So it is not considering that any odd number of electronic donation is possible. So the neutral ligands like CO, the carbonyl, they are considered as a 2 electron donor, and the ligands like halide, they are considered to take an electron from the metal and treated as X minus. So the in the X minus, that minus charge is due to the one more electron that is coming from the metal to ligand. That is how it gets the charge of -1, and metal is having the charge of +1, right? So you can consider the ligand, the same cyclopentadienyl as C5H5 minus. So if you remember, when we name such compounds, we call it cyclopentadienyl anion. So it says that again 5 number of electronic contribution is not possible. The odd number of electron cannot be donated here. So here the one electron that is shown here, it is what? It is one electron that is the ligand has taken from the metal itself and acquired the charge of -1. So you will take it into account when you will count the electronic when you count the 18 electrons, right? So it becomes a 6 electron donor. You write it like C5H5 minus. Now the oxidation state of metal we are also calculating in this, and the total charge over the complex minus charge over the ligand. So number of the electron contributed by the metal is calculated as the group number minus its oxidation number. Finally, the electron count is done as the total of electrons on the metal and electrons contributed by the ligand. So again, we have taken the similar complex here, and now we are calculating the electrons by donor ligand method, right? So let us now consider what is the oxidation state of the iron here. So if you can see that one minus charge is present on the cyclopentadienyl and one minus charge is present on the chlorine, that is chloride. So a total of two negative charges present, but the overall complex is neutral. The total charge on the complex is zero. So how is it possible? It is possible only when your iron atom is having 2 plus charge. So when iron is having a 2 plus charge and 1 negative on the cyclopentadienyl, 1 negative on the chloro. So as a result, total charge on the complex would become 0. So that is how you calculate the oxidation state of the metal. So the oxidation state of metal is plus 2. So plus 2 is the oxidation state. Now the group number of iron is 8. And you can also say that total number of valence electron are 8 in the iron. So the group number actually represented. Otherwise, you can count on the number of valence electrons. So it has 3d6 4s2 electronic configuration, and the group number is 8. Now, number of electrons contributed by iron. So because the two electrons are lost, and that is how it has attained the di-positive charge. So you will minus the 2 from 8. From the total of 8 electrons, 2 are lost, and that is how it has attained plus 2 oxidation state. So electronic contribution would be 6 from Fe di-positive ion. Then number of electron contributed by one cyclopentadienyl, it would be 6, because now we have paired the electron. 5 are coming from the C5H5 and 1 negative is also there. So a total of 3 electron pairs or 6 electrons are coming from this ligand. Then number of electron contributed by 2 carbonyl. So 4 electrons are coming because it is L type of ligand. Then electrons contributed by 1 Cl minus, it becomes 2. So when you add these values, so 6 and 6, 12, 12 and 4, 16, and plus 2, it becomes 18 now. So by both the methods, we have taken the same example and we adopted two methods for the calculation. Both are giving us 18 electron rule. But the difference is what? When you are considering the oxidation state of the metal and the charges present on the ligand, it gives you the actual picture, the actual bonding picture of the metal complex. So this type of method is much more useful. So you can compare here the two methods, the neutral ligand method and donor pair method. So the first ligand that we are taking is hydride, and if you consider the neutral ligand method, it is one electron donor. But in the donor pair method, it will be hydride minus, because one electron cannot be donated. So it becomes 2 now, and hydride H minus is denoted. Similarly, for the halogens, one electron is coming from the neutral ligand method, but when you consider the donor pair method, it becomes 2, because each of the halogen is taking one electron from the metal itself and converting itself into F minus, Cl minus, Br minus. Then in case of the carbonyl, it is L type of ligand and 2 electrons are coming, and this is the same in both of these methods. Then cyclopentadienyl, so 5 ligands are contributing in the neutral ligand method, and in the donor pair method, you consider it as the anion, and a total of 6 electrons are coming. Then NO linear, when the nitrosyl, it is present in the linear structure, it is contributing 3 electrons, but in the donor pair, you count it as NO plus. So only 2 electrons are coming. And when you consider NO bent, in the neutral ligand method, it is giving only 1 electron, but in the donor pair method, you count it as NO minus, and a total of 2 electrons are coming. That is how you calculate the total electronic contribution from all these two methods. These are the references for today's lecture, and that is all from my side for today. Thank you so much.